Hello, welcome to the Ireland podcast. This is Fender Jackson. The time is 6:05 p.m. on Monday the 30th of June 2025. I am in a Zoom call with this person. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Wayne McCullough, former world boxing champion. Been boxing my whole life.
Brilliant. Wayne, thanks for joining me in this call. This is a real honor to share this time with you. It's funny you say you're a former world champion. You don't say, it's not like a president of America. You say, I am a world champion.
Yeah, well, I won my world title. I never lost my world title, so I'm still a champion.
I loved watching, it was an interview with Jensen Button just after he'd won the world championship with Braun GP back in the day, which is a real weird championship to have won because they weren't even sure they're going to be in the championship that year. But he said he woke up the next morning and said, "You're world champion." Do you waking up and still pinch yourself sometimes?
I think when it happened 30 years ago, I remember waking up the next day. I was sitting in the backyard. Of course, it's July in Vegas. It was 100 degrees. I was just sitting there thinking, I did my childhood dream, became a world champion, but it doesn't really sink into your head. You know what I mean? It's like you've did it. So what do you do next?
Yeah, and that's a big question, I guess. Can we go back to the start? Can we chart through your life and how you got to where you are today? Would you mind?
Yeah, no problem.
Let's go. Where do we start?
I started in Belfast, Northern Ireland, as a 7-year-old kid. When I first went to the boxing gym, and I went along. My two older brothers boxed, so I just went along with them and just sort of. I like boxing. I played football, of course. I played football over there. Did cross country running, did a bit of rugby, but boxing. Not saying it was easier, but it sort of came natural to me. So I just trained for like 6 months, and then I had my first fight when I was about 8 years old. And I remember winning my first fight by second round stoppage. So just sort of took off from there. And by the time I was 12, I probably had about 100 fights or something.
Wow.
And won the boys club championships. And, I'd lost a few fights along the way, but I just liked the fact that it was one-on-one and you can't blame anybody but yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it fit. It was a good fit for me.
Yeah. And so where was the training gym?
The gym was called Albert Foundry. It was on I was born in Shankill Road as a kid. I was born in Percy Street on the Shankill, actually born at home. And then we moved to the suburbs of the Shankill, the Greater Shankill, Highfield Estate. And I lived in Highfield Estates from like 2 years old to till I came here when I was 22. I think we moved like somewhere else for like 6 months, but more or less Highfield was my home. And to say till I came to Las Vegas. And the gym is across the street. So, 5 minutes away, you walk to the gym. I'm not going to get like a bus to go to the gym or anything. So it was a local gym. And I just went along to him. I said, my two brothers, my oldest brother came home with a trophy one night and it's about this size. And I'm like, I want one of them. I was 7 years old. And then that's why I went to the boxing gym. But I said at that point, I was playing football and stuff like that. And you're busy, at school all day and then doing this, doing that. But I always made it to the gym, at least 3 or 4 days a week when I was a kid.
And Shankill is a bit of a notorious place in terms of the troubles. Did it have an impact on you, or to what extent did it have that?
Yeah, well, growing up, I'd say in the Greater Shankill area, you know, you see what's going on. I was born in 1970s, and the 70s and 80s was tough. There was the religious divide, as they say it was. It was just bombs going off, people being killed. It was normal. It was a normal life. You see the soldiers walking on the street when you're playing football in the street. They've got 4 or 5 British soldiers on one side of the street, 4 on the other side, just walking down the street with guns, pointing guns. You're like, this was normal as a kid growing up. 69, the trouble started. I was born in 70. So for me, being born into that, it's just normal. then you see the jeeps come down the street, the tanks come down the street, and it's normal life. You know what I mean? It's just hard to describe, and it's weird. 'Cause I remember my coach Eddie Futch, the first time he came over to Belfast, my first pro fight in 1983. He couldn't believe where I lived. He's like, well, why is the soldiers walking the streets? Why is there tanks? I'm like, oh, this is normal. You get searched walking in the stores. Oh, this is normal. And it was just weird. But see, growing up, that made you tougher. You
In
know,
what way?
I knew the area I was in, but it was more or less UVF, UDA, and I knew as a
That's
teenager.
loyalist paramilitaries, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of paramilitaries, and growing up in that, I think they're trying to recruit you when you're like a teenager, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And I wasn't that stupid. I mean, and a lot of my friends, that's what they do. They signed up as young age, but and them guys to this, if I went home today and seen them, to this day they would still stand and talk to me. I know what they were doing. I knew what I did, but they almost look at you like, you get out, and sometimes you're trapped in something that you can't get out of, and sometimes you want to do it. And I focused on boxing. Boxing was a sport that, at 15 I told my friends I was going to be a world champion, but I had to get I said I'm going to make it the Olympics as well. And coming from Highfield Estate in the Shankill was like, it was a pipe dream. But when you set goals and you do the hard work as well, and all my friends seen that, a lot of times there was ratting going on. You look like they're throwing rocks at each other. There's no guns or anything. It's just rocks, bottles or something. And it was normal as a teenager to do that. But my friends would say to me, "Oh, you stay over there. You're going to get hurt. You're fighting in a couple of weeks." So they respected that. Big J was one of the guys. He just like put you, don't you come near here. I'm like, okay. So they knew you're fighting in 2 weeks or something. So there was a lot about, they say it's about religions and that, and they're making sure you're okay.
Wow.
I mean, they're all not bad people, I say, on both sides, but it was just a way of life. Growing up, when they put the walls up in Shankill Road, it runs right up to like almost the Springfield, which is close to where I live in Highfield. When you put a wall up, kids are born into it thinking what's on the other side of the wall.
This is the
It's
peace
normal.
wall going up the middle and separating the two communities.
Yeah, they call it the peace wall today, but if it was real peace in Northern Ireland, you'd not take down the wall.
Yeah.
The Berlin Wall came down in '89, and where I came from, I was born on Percy Street on the Shankill, which is about 100 meters from the wall, and I was born actually at home. I was born in the house, and the wall was erected in '69. So when there's a wall dividing the working class people, there was never a wall dividing the rich people. Rich people, Protestant, Catholic, in the neighborhoods in Belfast, even I could take the neighborhood which is rich, and they never were separated. So if it's really about religion, how come they didn't separate the rich people?
Yeah.
And the working class people were always the ones who like socialize together. Because when you go from Belfast, East Belfast, West Belfast, and you go into the city centre, that's where all the shops are. And even during the Troubles, people shop together in the city centre. There's bars there. There was restaurants. So it's when you went to their own communities at night time, then the ghosts come out and they start to play. And then I say there was a lot of tragedy and bombs going off and people being killed all through the '69 till '98 when the peace process came in. And I know I've said it to people before that if the wall comes down, I'll take the first brick. But people, oh, you don't come from here anymore. Oh, you don't know anything. I'm like, I was born in 1970. I grew up in the midst of the Troubles in the '70s and '80s was really, really, really bad. So I know all about it.
Mm.
And I know I've got a lot of friends who are Catholic and had been right through the Troubles, came to my area. I went to their area and there was never any problems.
And how did you meet those guys? Because I grew up in the Troubles. I was born in '73, and I didn't meet my first proper Protestant friend until I was 16. And that was only because I joined a band and he was a friend of a friend. That's the only
Yeah.
way that I met this person. How
Yes,
did
you're
you meet
seven.
your friend?
You're young. You're young. My wife's born in '73 as well. No, I met them through boxing. My first fight was I was 8 years old. The first fight was in Ballyclare, and then we fought in the Sacred Heart Gym as well. I think it was my second fight. Where Eamon McGee, he's from Ardown, Ian McGee's my good friend right through the amateur days, right through the pros. I talked to him recently, and him is known as a bad boy, but I love him. And we're both different religions, but you go to their gym and do like fights, and then they come to your neighborhood and have fights, and there was never any trouble. That was in the late 70s, 80s when there was trouble around in Belfast. But when boxing was involved with each other, like Catholics going to Protestant neighborhood and Protestants going to Catholic, everybody's looked after. They had 10 or 11 fights, and then afterwards had to sit down and have a cup of tea or something. And there was never any trouble. And I don't remember any trouble ever happened after like a fight.
Wow.
And to say if I was in the Falls Road or up in Nardown, there was never no trouble. The same if they came to Shankill or came to East Belfast, there was never trouble. And that's how I met Catholics then. And I had a good friend called Paul Ireland, actually. He was down from the Falls, and he was on the Commonwealth Games team with me in 1980. He died, unfortunately, but he was a great friend of mine. And I've got Joe Lowe in Belfast, who I talk to all the time, and there's a lot of good friends I have. And Eamon Lochran, he's a world champion from Northern Ireland. He was WBO welterweight champion. He's my good friend, and we travel the world together.
Brilliant. You're reminding me in many ways of chess. The world of boxing and the world of chess, they overlap in some ways because you're talking about earlier. In a game of chess, you can be playing really hard, playing really well, but it takes one wrong move and it's curtains. And that's the same as boxing. But then the other thing is my kid, he's playing chess at a high level now, and he is mingling with other chess players from other clubs. Right. So this is how I'm hearing that you're meeting other guys from other clubs as well.
Yeah, it's boxing was that type of community. Say you fought local fights, just fights that weren't even on your book, on your book for your fights. Because you have to be 11 years old when you're legally allowed to fight, but they had 8, 9, 10. They had local cards and like a club where they have 10 fights, and then they have a get together with a bit of music or something. And that was normal. And say you met people with different religions, and you know what? They look the same as us. we all look the same. We're like a stone's throw. Not saying it, but stone's throw away from each other. You know what I mean? That wasn't a joke. It just came out there. You know what I mean? So it was normal. And say coming Highfield Estate, if you walk down the hill and down the West Circle Road, that was Springfield. So that's the border right there. There's a wall there. And then you go down to Woodfield to the lower the Shankill Road. The wall stretched the whole way down. That's how close I was to Catholics as well, growing up. And I used to go out jogging up the Ballysillan Road. I cut through our down and never had any problems at all.
And yet you, in your fighting career, you didn't have flags, you didn't have national anthems. Was that your decision, or were you guided there, or where did that come from?
No, as an amateur, you're labelled. You fight for Ireland, you fight for Northern Ireland, Commonwealth Games, and you fight for the flags. It's normal because you're fighting for your country. But coming from where we're coming from, are you fighting for Northern Ireland? Are you fighting for Ireland? Well, I was born in Northern Ireland, so when I go to the Commonwealth Games, I'm fighting for Northern Ireland because Ireland's not part of the Commonwealth. And then when I go to the Olympics, it's all Ireland because Northern Ireland are not an international country like Ireland is. So I fight for Ireland. So that's the way it was. And I fought for Ireland probably over 50, 60 times. And then I fought for Northern Ireland probably a dozen times or more. And I got medals for both countries, but there's the same country to me.
And did I read that correctly? Did you have national thing or not?
No, I didn't. When I turned pro, everybody like, you gotta wear this, you gotta do this. I remember my manager when I came to America, he's an American guy. He had a pair of green shorts with the shamrock on it. I'm like, why do I have to show everybody I'm Irish and Northern Irish, whatever? They know where I come from. I don't have to say, oh, we're in the Northern Irish man, we're in the Irish man. They know where you're from. Yeah. And over here in Vegas or America, you just say, yeah, I was born in Northern Ireland right away. You just say, oh, you're born in Ireland, you were born in Ireland, born in Ireland. That's normal. It's a normal thing. You're Irish. And growing up like that, it was normal. But when I turned pro, I said, I don't want no anthems and in the amateurs, you stand for Danny Boy, which I did for the gold medal at Commonwealth Games. Fought for Ireland on numerous occasions, and I stood for the Soldier Song, and that was normal. But as a pro, I want everybody to come together without saying, "Oh, this is your anthem, this is yours." We're all one, and I did that as a pro when I fought in Belfast and fought in Dublin. People came to my fights in Belfast, and it was the IRA and UVF, but there was never any trouble, flags, or anthems because they came to support me, and I wanted the whole country to support me. And I never used any political statements. I carried the Irish flag in the opening ceremony of the Olympics in '88 when I was just barely turned 18. The youngest member of the team got to carry it. Carried the Northern Ireland flag in the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in 1990, and that was a proud occasion on both times because one person gets to carry it every 4 years. So it's times like that I'm not trying to bring the country together because people have to come together themselves. But I always said I'm a sportsman, not a politician. And maybe I'll run for the mayor of Belfast now. No, so it's just, when you bring politics into sport, then it doesn't fit. Because as say, growing up fighting in different neighborhoods and getting together with different religions, it was a good thing.
Yeah. So talk me through your journey in your professional career to the title.
Well, I've got the shirt on here. My friend back home made this shirt. Yushu Yakashishi first win McCullough right here. Nagoya, Japan, July 30th, 1995. The journey was when you have a coach like Eddie Futch in your corner. He's the reason why I came to Las Vegas in 1983. He was 83 years old.
Wow.
And he took me on because he seen me at the Olympics.
And just talk very quickly about his track record.
Eddie Futch, if anybody knows boxing, everybody knows Muhammad Ali. Well, Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali in the first fight they had when they were both undefeated. Joe Frazier beat Ali. Ali beat him in the revenge matches, but Joe Frazier beat Ali in the first fight they had when they were both young undefeated guys. And Eddie was part of that team, you know what I mean? And then Ken Norton was another heavyweight that Eddie trained, and he beat Ali in his first fight, and Ali beat Ken Norton in the second and third fights. So, and Leon Spinks was another guy who beat Muhammad Ali, and Eddie trained all three. Oh. That was the old school guys. And then modern day, when I came here, Riddick Bowe was a heavyweight champ of the world when I came here. He was Olympic silver medalist in 88. And I say he was a champion when I came here. Mike McCallum, who my good friend, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago. He was 3-time world champion from Jamaica. He was in the gyms here. So when I come over here, I'm watching guys like this as a young 22-year-old, like world champions run about the gym, and they're teaching me, and I'm gobsmacked because you can't get that back home. And Eddie's teaching me the defense and sitting down my punches, how to be a pro. And it was like going from the Irish League to the Premier League. That's how big of a step it was. But I enjoyed learning and getting better. And the hardest thing was leaving Belfast. That was the biggest. Everybody knows me. Anybody in the Irish team would say, Wim McCullough was a homebird. He goes away for a week and he's crying to get home. But then all of a sudden, my whole life changes. It was like, I thought I was going to stay in Belfast, but everything changed, and I'm coming to Las Vegas. I'm like, what? I'm coming from Belfast, Northern Ireland, to Las Vegas, Nevada. All they seen Las Vegas was on the Elvis movies. Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah. What was the barrier for you to make that jump immediately? And what is the mind shift you needed to do to make the jump?
Well, a lot of people say to me to this day, they'll say, why did you leave it? I'm like, why did I leave you? Eddie Futch, them two words. Two words. Like, as I just said earlier on there, that if you're in the Irish League and you get offered to go to the Premier League, you're going to turn it down.
Yeah.
You're going to say, no, I'll just stay here. A lot of our players back home have went to the Premier Leagues and played in some of the top teams. But I'm like, he's going to train me. I'm like, what? Why would he train me? I was questioning myself. Why would he train me? Yeah, he asked me, see me at the Olympics. And there's a little documentary about what he talked about me. He says, yeah, I seen Wayne, I seen the Olympics, and then I seen this kid has it. That's what he said. This kid has it, and I'm like, wow. And he made me a world champion within 27 months, which was quick.
Yeah.
It could have been quicker because I had to wait for a year for the world champion to fight me when I became number one contender. But I was happy enough to wait for the year because I was still fresh and young and getting experience.
And
And
how does an 83-year-old man train a young up and coming professional?
because he's got three assistants, he can still move. He can still walk, and he can still drive, and he can still do all that. He didn't really hold the mitts. He would demonstrate stuff, but he had coaches. A guy called Phil Torrance, a guy called Kenny Kroom, and then actually Freddie Roach, who trained Manny Pacquiao. He was part of the team then, and Hedgeman Lewis. They were all his understudies. So, and they did exactly what he said to do. If he said do this, they did it. If he said do this, they did the opposite. He'd say bye bye.
Oh wow.
That's how strict he was, and I get how strict he was because it worked. He trained 20 world champions, and I was the smallest, and I think I was his last one as well. But I was closest to him till he passed away at 90 years old. I stayed close to him, and out of all the fighters he trained, he gave me a letter about being a coach someday, and about I listened well. I'm going to be a good student of boxing, and I was gobsmacked when he gave me that. It was like getting a diploma for the university or something.
Wow.
And I have it hanging on my gym wall out in the garage. And it's just when he gave it to me, I was shocked. But when I came here, I was shocked he took me on, and just sitting listening to his stories. He's talking about Joe Louis back in the 40s and 50s of last century, and anybody in boxing would know who Joe Louis is. And I'm like, what? And he sparred with Joe Louis. I'm like, this is crazy. The stories, there was no Wikipedia back then. You had to sit down. When we go to fights in different states or different countries, he'd be sitting down at a dinner table talking for an hour or two. But it was all stuff you wanted to listen to. And it was just like, you're sitting there like, wow. And then he compared me to a fighter called Henry Armstrong. If you look Henry Armstrong up, he had 3 belts when there was only 8 world champions. And he almost held half the belts, and he compared me to hit the same style as him. I was like, wow. So Eddie Futch, he's the reason why I came here. He's the reason why I became world champion. A lot of people say, oh, no, he's not the reason why I became world champion because you had talent. I said, I always thought I didn't have talent. I always thought I had to work harder than people. So I always did that extra work, running the hills in Belfast, extra runs in the gym. And maybe I did have talent, but I always thought I didn't. So I just worked harder and harder and harder. Some people with talent think they have talent, so they don't need to work out. And I've seen a lot of them people go to this fall to the wayside because you need somebody to bring that talent out of you as well. And if I had talent, Eddie brought that talent out of me because I was busy fighter at the beginning of my career, and I became Ireland's first ever WBC world champion.
And I'm reading between the lines here and seeing that maybe you did extra work beyond what Eddie was giving you. Is that correct?
Eddie, yeah, even in the amateurs, with Nicholas Cruz Hernandez, he was our Cuban coach. My coach, Harry Robinson, was my local coach. But when we went to the Olympics, you got like Nicholas Cruz Hernandez and Michael Cruz' dad, Austin, was one of the coaches too. And they work with you for that competition. But Eddie, when I came here, Eddie knew, he said to me, oh, take Sunday off. And I'm like, what? And he got to the point, he knew I was going to train or go run. He's like, I know, you just don't go too hard. He always had to stop me from training. That I've seen him talk to the fighters and say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm like, okay, they don't do it. Riddick Bowe was a heavyweight champ of the world. And Eddie had to bring him to training camp a month before he started 2-month training camp to get him in shape for the training camp. Because he never kept himself in shape. For me, put it like this, I had my first 7 pro fights in 16 weeks. I went from 4-round fighter to a main event fighter and the 10th fight, which is in Belfast in June of 1993. Because I was fighting regular. I wanted to train. I kept training. I just kept fighting. That's me. I was never out of the gym. And even Nicholas Cruz Hernandez, the Cuban coach we had in 92, he had to stop me from training too. But they didn't stop me. They knew I was going to do it. So either way. I love training, and I still run every day today.
And where did that uh, self-motivation come from?
In my own head, I just, I always seen when I started fighting at the beginning at our boxing gym in Albert Foundry, there was pros training there at the time, and a fighter called Davy Larmy, he became British champion. He was a Commonwealth gold medalist, and I just looked up. I watched people like that and sort of just try to like take something from them and not copy them, just take something from them and add it to what I had. And I did that, and that's why I get better quick, I think, because I just kept training. And even, let's say you're 13, 14, 15, your friends are all out drinking and doing this. And I'm not saying I didn't drink or anything, but I didn't go out and or start smoking or something. And I'm like, not for me, but I still hung out with my friends. But if I had, as like I said at the start, if I had competitions and stuff, I'd be in bed early at night, getting up running in the morning. So I always had the discipline that, before I went to school, go for a run, come back out of school, go to football practice, and then go to the gym that night. That was normal for me. And I didn't want to miss a gym. I wanted to get better and better and better. That's as an amateur. And then as a pro, when you're a pro, that's your job. So, and you might have that window of 5 or 6 years that you're at your peak and stuff. So you got to make the most of it. And that's what I try to do in my pro career.
And back to your 27-month run up to getting the title from joining Eddie. Walk us through that. What did that look like?
Let's say I turned pro. My first pro fight was February 23rd, 1983. It's crazy because I left Belfast on Saturday, got my visa. I remember I was down to the American Embassy in Belfast on the Saturday morning, jumped on a flight that afternoon, arrived in the LAX airport on the Saturday night, and I fought my pro debut 3 days later in LA. I won by fourth round knockout. I was only in the country 3 days. Back then, when you're young, you don't think about jet lag or how long it took me about 24 hours to get there. But I was so excited about fighting, and the training was done at home for that fight because I just left. Then I met up my coaches after the fight and came to Las Vegas the next day, and that was on February 23rd. I already had a fight scheduled for March, April, and May as well. So I had the 7 fights between 23rd of March and then June 18th was my 7th pro fight, which was in Belfast. And that was part of my contract. I wanted to fight in Belfast and Dublin every year for the first couple of years. But I was a busy fighter. And I had my first fight, LA, second fight in Madison Square Garden in New York, which everybody wants to fight in. My third fight was 8 days later in LA. And then I fought in Boston, which is full of Irish people. I fought in
8 days
Denver.
Later, 8 days later.
8 days later, yeah.
Well, you didn't give yourself any time to like if you had if you were pummeled in that fight, the second fight, you would have been sore on the third fight.
Yeah, I fought mostly tough Mexicans at that stage. First fight, fourth round knockout. Second fight, I think it was a second or third round knockout win. I remember fighting that guy. He's a Puerto Rican guy.
Yeah.
And his coach was talking so much crap about me just as we walked out into the ring, about what he was going to do to me. I'm going to beat this little white boy up. I'm going to take him to school. I'm going to do this, do that. And I turned around to my coach and said, is he talking to me? I'm like, does he know where I come from? And I knocked him down in the second, knocked him out in the third, I think. And then 8 days later, I won again. I won in 4 rounds. I won in points. And then I'd hurt my hand in the second fight, but I never told my coach. So in the fight, I was flicking this one, going boom, boom, boom with this one, flick, boom. I practically beat the guy with one hand, and the opponent was switched at the weigh-in that day. I got a different opponent who was 5 or 6 pounds heavier than me, but it didn't bother me. I was fighting anybody. And then my fourth fight, I say, was in Boston. Fifth fight, Denver. Sixth fight. My sixth fight was in Philadelphia. My wife had to leave because her visa had ran out, so it was a 3-month visa, and it ran out. That's the only fights that she missed. So I was in Philadelphia June 1st. I fought in the Blue Horizon Arena, which is a famous arena. Jumped on a flight June 2nd, arrived in Belfast June 3rd, and fought in my first main event 10-rounder in Belfast June 18th, which I won. I won the one in Philadelphia 5th round knockout, then the one in Belfast by a 3rd or 4th round knockout. So I was knocking most of the guys out. So it was so drink water.
Yeah.
And after that, because I get married in between as well, by the way. The fight in Denver was May 4th of 1983. My wedding was scheduled for May 7th. So I didn't want to get marked up. But I knocked the guy in the 4th or 5th round in Denver. And then kept training, got married. I trained twice on my wedding day.
Tell us the wedding date again, please.
May 7th.
May 7th. So 3 days after your May 4th fight.
Yes.
Wow.
And I had 2 fights scheduled for June 1st and June 18th.
Yeah.
And I actually got married on May 7th, flew to Hawaii for my honeymoon on the 8th. The whole weekend on my honeymoon, I trained twice a day.
Wow.
Came back to my coach, and then had the fight in Philadelphia, then the one in Belfast.
Wow.
And then I enjoyed my wedding after that, but I kept training. I sort of took I didn't fight from June 18th until September, but July and August I was still training. I stayed in Belfast for like a month. Had almost like another wedding, because I didn't bring them all over here. I couldn't afford anything back then, and I had like a big wedding party, whatever, and reception thing. And then I kept training, went away on a holiday, and even on my holiday I kept training.
Wow.
And then I come back to Vegas. I think it was the end of July, and then I had a fight scheduled in Dublin in September. So the schedule, I was flying around back and forward everywhere, across the country for training camps. Even in between the fights, I was in training camps in Washington, up in Roanoke, Hartford Springs, Virginia, up in Big Bear, California. So that's like travel back and forward. But when you're young, travel's easy. Yeah. When you're older, you're like, it's going to take me this long. I need to bring this. I need to bring this snack. I need to bring this. What am I going to do? I need to get to sleep.
Wow. I'm just thinking about the dehydration of a flight. I mean, whenever I've done a lot of long haul flights, and I feel like a crisp twig at the end of it, because the air is so dry.
Yeah.
So was any of that going through your mind during those?
Most of the flights, say coming to America, that was a long flight. That was back then. You had to fly from Belfast to London to somewhere else in LAX. It was at least 3 flights back then. Now they have direct flights. So I knew on the flight you have to keep rehydrated, but I was trying to keep my weight down as well.
Wow.
Because I was fighting 3 days after I got off the long flight. So as soon as I get off the flight, I'm training, I'm running. That's what I did. I think going for a workout after a long flight is actually good for jet lag, but people don't do it. They go sleep. I jump off a flight, I'm tired, and I go for that run. After about the first mile, I feel refreshed and better, and sort of gets me under the time zone. I've always did that. Even when I fly to Belfast, I jump off the flight and go for a run. People think I'm nuts, but maybe I'm nuts. But I understand, and I flew, say, from Vegas to Boston from one of my fights. That's about a 5-hour flight. Then to New York, it's about 5.5 hours, and back again. And then California is short. That's only a 45-minute flight.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I fought in North Dakota that year, Pensacola, Florida. They're about 4 or 5 hours. So it was a lot of flying the first year. Probably clocked a couple 100,000 miles.
Yeah. So your 11th fight is 94, January 18th of January 1994. I'm super impressed that you're able to remember all these dates from your fights. It's incredible.
No, I remember the dates, and I don't really watch a fight. Once in a while, I pop up, people in the gym would say, "Oh, this fight! Look how many punches you're throwing." I said, "That's the way I fought. It was normal."
Yeah.
And I say my fight in Philadelphia was my 6th fight. On the 4th round or the 5th round. Well, 5th round it was. I threw 245 punches in 1 round.
Wow.
And that's a punch shot record or something. But that was normal. It was 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th. I maybe threw 150, 200, 210, 220. I got stronger. And I say the travel was just part of boxing. Travel, hotel, travel hotel, different hotels. And then my 11th fight was a step up. The 11th fight was up in Nebraska, and it was January in not January in Nebraska. Anybody that knows cold weather, believe me, Belfast, we get a damn cold. They're actually mild summers and mild winters in it, 20 degrees below or 30 degrees below back home. But it's a damn cold. It's cold. But up in Nebraska, it was 40 below.
Wow.
Below zero, 40 below zero. I've never experienced in my life. And people are like, oh, but you're from Ireland. I'm like, it doesn't get this cold. You go out there and you have to wrap your ears up and your face up and cover you like this. That's a balaclava you're wearing. You were wearing one of them. But I fought up there in Nebraska, and the fans came out for me. It was sold out. It was on USA Tuesday night fights, which is they showed fights every Tuesday night. And say the fans come out for me, and I was fighting for the NABF belt. The NABF belt goes back to Muhammad Ali. He won the NABF belt. That's how far back it goes. Not a world championship, put you in the top 10 to fight for the WBC belt. And I went out there, I fought a guy who was 10. He had 10 wins, no losses with one draw, Puerto Rican. And this guy he was a handful because he went around the hotel the days before, and he had all these flyers, what he was going to do to me, post them on the walls and stuff, and what he was going to do to me. I was so angry. I think he was trying to make me angry, but I said to my wife, "Go and grab them, rip them all up, throw them out. I'm going to take care of him in the ring." And then in the ring, I stopped him in the 7th round. My first 12-round fight, I stopped him in the 7th. I had him down twice. Then the referee stepped in to stop it. I wanted to punish him so badly. I'm never like that, but I just got enjoyment out of it because he was just so horrible to me before the fight. And
does anger, what part does it play in a fight? Is it a hindrance or is it a motivator?
If you control it, it's a motivator. If you don't control it, you'll lose your head and lose the fight. But I just fuel I get that burning like a fuel. So he's saying it's about me. He's going to do this. Let's see what he does. As a 22-year-old kid, I just turned 23. I'm thinking, is he serious? Is he serious? You know what I mean? So it was just normal, and that fight got my first belt. That's that one there. This one here.
Yeah.
The North American Championship, and that put me in the top number 5. I think it was number 5 in the WBC rankings. Which the WBC belt is the one. Not disrespecting any other belts. I've wanted that since I was 15, because Muhammad Ali had the WBC belt, and he's known as the best fighter of all time. You see him with the green and gold belt. That's a belt that I wanted, and that fight put me in line. I had to fight the number 1 guy after that. It wasn't a crack at the belt. I had to fight the number 1 guy to get the number 1 spot first.
Mm.
It wasn't easy.
Keep going. I'm loving this journey. Keep going.
No, I had a fight in March. Right, that was January of '94, and then March of '94, I actually fought in Millwall Soccer Stadium outdoors, and it was football stadium, actually football. I'm too Americanized over here, soccer. And I was outdoors in March, and it was freezing cold. It was actually, I remember walking to the ring in a full tracksuit. Maybe I was just getting used to the American weather, the Vegas weather, but it was freezing that night. I think it was like 2 degrees below or something. But I went out there and fought an English guy, last minute replacement. I knocked him out in the 3rd round or something. And I was just working my way up. So in June of '94 was a big test. I was scheduled to fight a guy called Rabanales. He was a former WBC champion twice. And he wasn't old. He was only like 29 or something. And he was the number 1 contender. So I was number 5. I had to fight the number 1 contender to get to that spot. And we fought at the Trump Taj Mahal. Wow. in Atlantic City in June of 1994. And Rabanales had 50 fights. It was going to be my 13th fight as a pro. And he learned me a lot in that fight about everything, believe me, because he hit me with punches I've never been hit with before. Like punches that I should have caught. I was working on defense with Eddie, but I hadn't perfected how to catch the uppercut or catch a punch coming here. People do it like this, 1-2, 1-2. Eddie taught defense. So if you do this here and the guy slips your jab, You're open to the head if you do this. But Eddie had you do this, catch with this hand.
Mm.
If he throws the right hand over the top, you cut it with that hand. Boom. And I did that in my career, but I hadn't perfected it in 94. I was only in the country a year. It takes a couple of years to perfect. But Rabanales had a short guy, long arms, Mexican, could crack. He had more knockouts in his record than I had fights.
Mm-hmm.
And we won 12 rounds. It's the first time I won 12 rounds. We went 12 rounds. I won probably 8 rounds to 4. And I got a unanimous decision win. But my eye was busted up, and he hit me with the number cut one time, and I thought I was watching TV in the hotel room with my wife. I was out of my feet. He's the only guy that's ever had me out of my feet. I came around quickly, and I looked at him and nodded my head. I didn't show any signs of getting hurt. My legs were stayed strong. I just nodded to him, and he looked at me as if, "Why you nod at me?" He didn't even know he didn't even know he hurt me. But I say it was an experience to get hit like that and not go down. I had a good chin, but the defense wasn't perfect, as I say. And then the fight, beat a guy who was a former world champion and get to that number one contender spot in the WBC rankings. I remember the next day, I just sat there with my wife. We were sitting there waiting at the hotel. I turned to her and I said, boxing is so tough. And I was busted up. And I said, I'm going to be a world champion. I said that to her directly. Because I knew that fight I had was like the test to get to where I wanted to go. And without that test, a lot of guys don't get tests anymore. And then they jump into the deep water and they can't get out of it. But I had that little test before I had the belt. And Victor Rabanales was that test for me to get to the World Championship. And I did it. It was 94, but I was number one contender at that spot.
I watched the interview with Bono and Joe Rogan recently, and Bono was talking about his best friend Guggi. Guggi's got kids, and one of the kids came to him and said, because he was into mixed martial arts, and said, "Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to be a doctor." And Guggi was gutted, and Bono was regaling this story back to Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's lesson or message to Bono or to Guggi via Bono was, that's the best message that you can hear, because that's the clear message for you to get out. And it means that once you hear that message, that's your call. Don't waste any time, get out of there, because there's an endless amount of guys behind you that want to fill your boots and go wherever you're going. So whenever you're saying that you're sitting in a hotel room with your wife and you're saying, "I'm going to be world champion," did any of those niggles enter your mind to your career to that point?
Well, Bono shouldn't be saying that, because I've shown him how to fight, and I know him really well. I've walked on my fights and stuff. And I know Joe Rogan well too, but Joe Rogan's a good MMA guy. The motivation after them fights is either, as you just said, get out or stay in it. And that fight with Rabanales was like, what am I doing here? But I knew what I was doing there, because I beat a former world champion who was legit. He's not like he was over the hill or anything. He was still after he fought me, he went on to fight for the belt and lost. But that was it. If I can beat him, I can beat anybody. And that's what I knew then at that point against Victor Rabanales. Said, if I beat him, I'm going to be a world champion, because he's been there, done that, and he was trying to get there again, and I just stopped him from getting there. And I say with him, Yeshua Yakashizi was the next target. He was the champion. But Yakashizi he wanted to wait. He wanted to have a fight in between fighting me. So they actually paid step aside money, which is like, I think back then, as I was told by my manager, 50 grand or something, just to step aside. And I'm like, if I step aside, I'm going to still fight. I'm going to fight a couple of fights. I had 3 more fights before I get the crack of the belt. So instead of waiting, I could have waited from June of 94 until July of 95. But instead of that, I fought September, November, and March. two in 94 and one in March of 95. And one was in 95, or sorry, 94, was in Dublin at the Point against Fabrice Benishu, who was a former world champion. So I wasn't taking easy fights in between. I was fighting guys that I can learn from and beat. And I did that, and I got 2 knockouts out of the 3 wins as well. So it set me up for the July of 95 for Yakashiji.
And what's the purpose of the step aside money? What's the purpose of that situation where you don't fight?
It means that I'm next when I beat Rabanales, I was the number 1 contender. So Yakashiji was next in line to fight me, and he has to fight me or get stripped of his belt. So they came to us and asked my manager about they want to have another fight against a Japanese guy, Tachiyoshi, who's a former 3-time world champion. And he could have lost, but it means if he'd have lost that belt to somebody else, I'm still in line to fight the winner. I can't lose my number 1 spot. So I'm thinking, well, if he's going to fight, I'm going to fight too. So that's why he had 1 fight, and then at the end of that year, and then he fought me in 95. So I had 3 fights just waiting. So it was all right. Plus I'm making money by 3 fights, plus the step aside money. And learning and getting better and getting better and getting better.
Wow.
I've had to stay out for over a year without doing anything. I've been rusty.
And talk about winning the WBC title. So talk us through that process quickly.
Well, WBC belt, I've dreamed of that since I was a kid. And not disrespecting any other belts, because I fought for other ones. But the WBC belt was on my mind since 15, you know what I mean? I just wanted it. And I know it's probably the hardest one to win, but I never did anything easy anyway. I stayed back in Ireland, in Belfast, and run the hills, the mountains every day as a kid, and always running against the wind, but it didn't stop me. And then doing the rounds in the gym, sparred with pros in Belfast and Barney Eastwood's gym. He let me train in his gym and spar with Paul Hogginson, Dave McCullough, world champions like that. So I'm learning as a 15, 16-year-old kid then. So that was drummed into my mind. Nothing was going to stop me. And the goal was right in front of me. And all I had to do was beat Yushu Yakashiji, which was, then it was an impossible mission, because going to Japan, no fighter from Ireland or the UK had ever went to Japan and won a world title. I'm not saying they didn't go there and win a world title, because they might have won, but the judges thought otherwise. The politics, and to beat a Japanese fighter in his own backyard it's almost impossible. But I didn't think like that, because when you have Eddie Futch in your corner, you can do the impossible. And we did it. Yushu Yakashiji won 12 rounds with him. Tough fight. And I believe I won at least 8 rounds to 4, just like the Rabanales fight, 8-4. One judge, the Korean judge, gave it to him by 1 point, 116, 115. The 2 American judges give it to me by like 116, 112, 117, 111. So pretty wide scores. But it was a great fight. And when the fight was over, it was all the Japanese presenter guy. So all they had was McCullough. Then the second judge, Yakashiji. And then McCullough-san. And then that's me being the 3rd WBC champion of the world for the WBC belt right here, which is 30 years old. My daughter's 27. She calls it vintage. But it's Ireland's first ever WBC belt, and to this day, Katie Taylor is the only one who's won the WBC belt for the women, and no other male has won it since then. So 30 years ago, we hadn't won a WBC belt 30 years ago, and the WBC belt's been around since '63. So we'll have one person who won it. It was this little guy here. I'm gonna say I never lost it. Had 2 defenses, then moved up and got a few controversial decisions.
I'm looking at the time. We got 5 minutes. You gotta.
Yeah, go ahead. Is anybody there yet? Sure. 1 second. Cheryl, anybody there at the gym yet? No. You're good. You're good.
I'm just thinking about because I want to cut forward to what it is that you're promoting now, because you're a trainer. So talk about that.
I started training fighters in 2006. I did personal training from 2000, but helped people how to lose weight and stuff. And men, women, kids, everybody. But trained fighters. My first professional fighter was a guy called Alex Arthur from Scotland. Alex became WBO super featherweight champion with me. So he's the first guy I trained became world champion. But after that, they didn't. I had a few fighters who fought for belts, lost. I walked away from boxing for a bit because boxers didn't want to pay me the 10%. So I sort of walked away. Every time I walked away from boxing, it brought me back again. I can't get away from it. And they say with Eddie's letter, I have his letter on the wall about being a coach someday. And every time I think about not training people, I look at that letter and think, well, maybe I'm meant to do it. Maybe I'm meant to do it. So I train amateurs as well, just amateurs and then pros. I say I still try to keep people keep fit. During the pandemic was hard because everything was done online. And I trained a lot of people online until I opened my gym back up. And I helped people, a couple actually, my good friend Josh, him and his wife are in their 30s, and they lost over 100 pounds between them during the pandemic by just training on Zoom and me telling them what to do and what to eat and stuff. So you can help people like that, and I'll enjoy doing that because it's not about how big you are or anything to get. It's about having your heart healthy. People's worry about, oh, I'm too big. You don't worry about that. Or people might say something to them, whatever. But I don't even listen to people. As long as your heart's healthy, that's the main thing. Go for a walk a couple of days a week. Camp with the champ that I have. It's $7. It's nothing. A cup of coffee costs you $7. But I help people, teach them boxing, teach them, life skills, teach them, my coach was 82 years old when I came here at 83, and he was like fit. So if he can do it, I can do it. So I can teach you how to do it. And I can teach people. I say, if you can't run, go for a walk. If you can't do a sit-up, try one. And I guarantee by the end of the month, you'll be doing 10, 20, 30 of them. Can't do a push-up, do it against a chair. Do one, work your way up. Eat this. If you can't stick to that, just if you want to have a piece of chocolate, have a piece of chocolate. Just don't eat the whole bar. If you want a burger, have half the burger. Don't eat the whole burger. But people lose a lot of weight and then they put it back on again. But this way, if you eat the things you want in portion size, then you'll keep the weight off. And it's a lifestyle, life commitment. And you still want to enjoy your food and your drink, whatever. You don't want to cut everything out. And people do that, cut it all out. And then, I lost 30 pounds. And you see them, I put 50 pounds back on. No, it's a lifestyle. You just keep it off and you eat portion size and drink whatever. And that's how you keep it off. I stay in shape all the time. And at my age, I'm 50. I'm 55 next week. And I want to be like Eddie Futch and be healthy. And he was 90, which means I should be able to live to 100. The generation my daughter's in should be able to live there 110. So there's better food today, better technology, better fitness things. And this little program I have is you'd have to go to the gym and pay $100 to go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So
I should ask about your daughter because I was just watching a video of her on Ireland's Got Talent. She's a great singer.
She's going to work on her second album. She sang for Westlife when she was 14. Yeah, she's 14. She opened in Belfast. They did 4 nights and she played for them 3 nights in Belfast at 14 years old. Walked on the stage at the Odyssey. And a couple of years, 3 years ago here in Las Vegas, in the Bellagio Hotel, they put a stage on the fountain at the front. And she sang on the stage for half an hour in Las Vegas, or the city she's born in. And she's like me, but because she doesn't take it for granted. Oh, she's made it. She just works hard and see other people. All of a sudden they're singing one day and they're star next day, but then they fall down quickly. She's building a foundation where she'll be around. You know what I mean? I say she's working on an album right now, and I say she did Ireland's Got Talent, and they loved her. And in Vegas, she just actually 2 weeks ago she sang at Angel Stadium in front of 45,000 people. Did the national anthem.
Wow.
So and all her things she puts on social media, she getting like 2 or 3 million people watching them. Like, I can't even get 20. You know what I mean? So she works hard at what she does and doesn't expect. She's like me in a way with my boxing, perfectionist,
Yeah.
which is a good and bad thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because she's got talent, but she works hard.
We haven't mentioned
And
her name. Her name is Y Mac.
why
So
her name is Winona Lee Davis McCullough, but Y Mac is her stage name.
yeah, so if anybody wants to track her down, I'll put links to her actually on the
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
She's you're on all music channel. Where are you in the music things? Apple. Are you Noni? Where are you on your music platforms? Everywhere on the platform. Everywhere on the platforms.
Great.
Apple, ever, I don't know. Apple Pear.
Beyond your coaching, what's left for you?
I don't know. You know what? I want to train multiple world champions. You know what I mean? Like Eddie had 20 world champions. He had top contenders and guys who were just average fighters too. But I just like to get the right fighters to you're going to listen. A lot of fighters don't listen. Believe me, we're stubborn, but a lot of fighters, like I just said about, they don't want to pay you. It's 10%. You pay a fighter, you pay the coach 10%. That's it. Eddie charged 15, but it was well worth it. Managers charge 20 to 30%, and they come to the gym once a month. The trainers are every day with the fighter, every single day. You know, all fighters are not the same. You know what I mean? And I just want the right fighters who they're disciplined here. I've got a kid actually coming in 2 weeks he's moving here, Mathew Kindale, from back home. He's going to move here. He's got an apartment down the street, and he's only 22 years old. He's a pro, 7 fights, and he's been trying to get here for the last year or two, and now he's finally coming here in 2 weeks to train with me. So I would love a bunch of Irish fighters here, but so far he's really the only one who wants to be here. And the rest of them are Americans and Mexicans, whatever.
It's got a ring of history repeating itself. 22 years old, going to America.
Yeah, but he does. He's got the talent, and he's coming here. It's hard coming here, but at least he has me here. You know, me and my wife, she was my girlfriend. We didn't have anybody. We didn't know one person in the whole country. But at least we're here. I'm around the corner of where he is, and he'll feel more at home. He was here for a month at the beginning of the year to see if he liked it, and he loved it.
Brilliant.
And I got him the best training, sparring, different gyms, and he just thought it was a different level, completely from back home. Back home, we have the same level, no money, and we have success still. But imagine we had the right coaching over there all the time. We get fight champions after champions after champions. You know, so he's doing it. Matthew's doing it.
I have 3 more questions. Number 1, what's your favorite boxing movie?
Favorite boxing movie? The Wayne McCullough story. The future Wayne McCullough story. My favorite boxing movie. Everybody, the Raging Bull, like, is always a classic one. You know, Jake LaMotta. And I was always motivated by the Rocky 1, 2, because 1, 2, and 3 was good. 4 wasn't bad. I haven't seen the new ones. But for the Rocky movies, I used to crack eggs in the cup and put it in the milk and then drink it and go out running. That's what I used to do as a kid. So that the movie motivated me like that. But I know it was all like fictional stuff. But the Jake LaMotta, The Raging Bull, is a real true story. The Cinderella Man is a good movie too. So it's hard to pick a good one. But
have you seen The Fighter?
I love The Fighter too. Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, Mickey Ward, you mean? Mickey Ward?
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of is the one with
Mickey Ward. Mickey Ward, is it?
Mickey Ward. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Mickey. The funny thing is, I'm not boasting, but standing right here in my living room 3 years ago was Mickey Ward, Larry Holmes, and Michael Spinks were all standing here. We're all in the ring doing a conversation together, and he sent me the fighter like poster from the movie.
Yeah.
And because the Turagati, he fought 3 fights with a Turagati, Mickey Ward. 3 of the best fights you ever seen. But Mickey Ward, the fighter, that was a good movie. I like that movie because it's modern day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real. It's about his coach was more or less on drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's more or less focused on his coach. And Mickey became WBU champion. I mean,
Yeah.
and he's great. He's a good guy. Mickey's a good guy. He's a great fighter. Give a lot to the sport.
Second last question. How would you like to be remembered?
I just want to be remembered as the guy who gave everything in boxing, gave everything to people. Always, always approachable, which I have been, and you know, just I say I've given everything I could to the sport of boxing, for the next generation coming through, and that's what I want, because boxing is a tough sport, dangerous sport, but it's the greatest sport in the world. I think I really believe that. Changed my life. I'm sitting here in Las Vegas.
And finally, may I ask for you to say, I'm Wayne McCullough and you're listening to the Ireland podcast?
Yeah. I'm Wayne McCullough and you're listening to the Ireland podcast.
Wayne McCullough, world champion. May I say thank you very much for your time. I've had a wonderful chat with you.
No problem at all. Anytime.
Yeah. We might
Thank you so much.
I think we've only sort of covered half of your career.
Yeah.
I would love to pick it up again and see what happened thereafter. If you're
let me know. We didn't talk about all the manager problems I had too through my career, which screwed me out of $1 million.
Oh, great. And also, I'm very interested in you said something in an interview that I was watching about how judges are not regulated.
Yeah, the judges could be a doctor or a lawyer and then just go to fight and judge. Yeah. They're not full-time judges.
But there's no audit, in terms of why did you score this round in that way?
Yeah, there's no if it's a bad decision given, like my fight in Japan, 2 American judges give it to me, no problems. A Korean judge turned around and gave it to Yakushiji. How did you come to that conclusion? Yeah. Why did you come to that conclusion? There's a lot of favoritism, a lot of politics. And I say I didn't talk about the career where I was robbed 3 times in fights, in championship fights, which would have made me a 3-division world champion, but it didn't because it's not on paper. Because the judges voted against that, but the referees in them 3 fights all said to me they thought I won the fight. Wow. And the referee doesn't have any commitment to either fighter. He sees the fight closer than anybody. And when them three referees told me that, I'm like, where's the belts? Give me the belts. Would have been a 3-division world champion, you know what I mean? But I'm not. And I was paid to say I was a 1-time world champion. I suppose that's good enough.
Well, it's a arduous journey to get you there. Anybody there, so it's not to be sniffed at.
No, anybody that does the hard work and has a dream in their head, if you make it or don't make it, at least you can't look back and say, I could have did this, I could have did that. A lot of people say that when they haven't did the hard work, so they couldn't have did this and couldn't have did that. But if you've did everything and you don't make it, you just didn't make it. But you did everything possible to try to do it. But I hate people that say, you know what, when I was younger, I could have did this and I could have did that. And I'm thinking, I was out running the hills and you were out drinking. I was running the hills and you were in the pub again. So no, you wouldn't have made it. You know what I mean? Because you didn't build you had to build a foundation. If you build a foundation with anything, it stays steady. Some people, as I said in this interview, some people go quick, but then they come back down quick. You want to be remembered where the steps up, different generation. People in Ireland know me today. Anybody in 20s and 30s know me because of their parents, probably. It's like Muhammad Ali being known around the globe because of what he did for, outside the sport. But Irish people know me through their parents, and like Mathew's only 22, you know what I mean? And I met him when he was 16 or something. So he knows me, and then they start watching your fights. That's how it keeps going. But everybody looks at me as a fighter. I'm a coach too. And I believe, and it's an argument that Eddie Futch was the best coach that ever lived. Anybody will say top 3, but I believe the top number 1. And not just as a person, but as a coach and a person. He was the best. And that knowledge I have in here from him is priceless. And I can teach that. I don't teach people the way I fought. I teach them whatever style they have. And that's a problem with a lot of boxers who become coaches. they try to train the fighter the way they fought, which is mistake number one. And all my fighters in the gym, amateur and pro, they've all got different sort of styles. Same combinations, but the styles are different. One might be aggressive, one might be move backwards, one might stand in the center of the ring. And I can teach that. I can do that. I can teach an amateur or a pro with different skills. And that's a skill that people can't teach, but I was taught that by Eddie, so I can teach it. And that's why a lot of Irish fighters haven't come over, because they don't know I do that, but they should know, because have one day with me and you'll find out. And I never get dropped or hurt in over 350 some amateur and pro fights. Never got wobbled. And I say I had a good chin, but it was down to having that defense as well. And I fought some of the biggest punchers in boxing history. And Morales and Hamed. So why not come to me?
Exactly. So people can find it more. They can go to school. That's SKOOL.com and then /camp with the champ. And those have got dashes in between each words there. So, but I'll put a link in the show notes anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Wayne. And yeah, until next time, keep well.
Until next time, I like that.
Yeah. Good man.
Thank you. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ireland podcast, celebrating, arguably, the coolest island on the planet. If you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, share with family or friends, or maybe even leave us a positive review. Your support helps guarantee our future. So, until next time, let us all celebrate the island.